Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to Coffee with Connie. I'm Connie Fuksa. And one thing I really like to do is talk to you guys about things that you have questions about. So although I have a lot of things that I've experienced in the real estate industry, doing title for more than 30 years, lots of questions, lots of things that I know are common things that maybe you don't understand. I love it better when you guys come to me with questions because then I can address things that I know are out there. So first, let me apologize for not being on for a couple days. Like a lot of other people, I've been fighting this really bad sinus infection, and today's the first day I feel human again, and I can actually put on a face. So thanks for being patient. I know it's not my regular day, but I really appreciate you being patient and tuning in. So thanks so much for taking the time. So the question I had most recently and that I wanted to talk about today was, you own a piece of property with someone else that's not a spouse. So let's say you and your boyfriend or you and your girlfriend decided to buy a home together and everything was going great for the first year, life was good, and then the relationship was not going so good. And then you decided, look, this isn't for me. I don't want to stay in this relationship. I want to get out of this house. How do I change that? How do I get out of this? And so this was a question that came to me from someone else, and that's exactly why I'm sharing, because it means somebody else probably has the same exact question. So if you own a house with someone else, you're both on the mortgage, you're both on the ownership of the property, which is the deed. I talk about removing or adding people to the ownership of the property frequently, but the one thing I really want you to understand here is that if you're on a mortgage to a piece of property, if you take your name off of the ownership of that property, you still are required to pay that mortgage. So if the person that you leave or that you're not with anymore decides not to make that mortgage payment, you're responsible. So you can't just walk away from that. You have to do a couple of things. One, that person that's going to keep the house has to refinance or get their own new loan that's just in their name, taking your name off the loan. Or you have to decide to keep the property and do a loan just in your name to take that person off the ownership of the property, or you have to sell the property. Otherwise, the mortgage still exists. Both of your names are still on the mortgage, and whatever you decide to do with the ownership could affect your credit, because if the other person doesn't make those payments, then you've got a problem. So when you go into deciding to buy a property with someone else who's not your spouse, and the reason I say your spouse is because there's a lot more involved when it's your spouse. But if you're buying something with someone else, make sure you're aware of all of the ramifications, things that could happen. And maybe it's not a boyfriend-girlfriend situation. Maybe it's a brother and sister. Maybe it's cousins. Maybe it's high school roommates. If you fall out of friendship with each other, you could end up in a problem. So you want to make sure that that's really spelled out, because you're both equally responsible for the repayment of that loan. So even if you don't stay in love, in friendship, in whatever with that person, you're both still equally responsible for the repayment of the loan. So that property's got to be sold, or that mortgage has to be refinanced. A new mortgage has to be gotten for the person that's going to stay in that property. So something really serious to look at, because you can't just walk away because you don't like someone else. You never know. They may not be able to make that mortgage payment without you, and then your credit's going to suffer. So maybe I gave you a little bit of tidbit of information. As I said, I love it when you guys come to me with questions, because that means somebody else out there has the same exact question. The other thing is, if you share, hit the share button below, then everybody can see what we just talked about. Maybe they have another question, then I can share information that they have questions about as well, because the reason that we're doing this is to help you guys all understand all the different nuances. It's so involved when you buy a piece of property or sell a piece of property. So I like to talk about a lot of that different stuff, but it helps a lot when you tell me questions that you have. Plus, if you hit that share button, you have a really good chance of winning a Coffee with Connie mug. Nice 20-ounce coffee mug you may have seen. We're getting low because a lot of people have been hitting that share. So hit that share for me. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you for tuning in to Coffee with Connie. I'm Connie Fuksa. Talk to you soon.